now. Take a step outside and seize the day now. Set aside your worries, it's okay now. The sun is here to stay. Blue skies, feel the wind beneath you as you fly by. Dancing on a cloud, it lifts you high, high, high. Your troubles blow away. And oh yeah, everything you want's right here. And oh yeah, the music's never been so clear. It goes oh, oh, na 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 na.
Today I'm joined by Sheridan from Vet Tails Sailing Chuffed, and Sheridan is going to be chatting with us about seasickness, our dogs and seasickness. So thanks again for joining us, Sherry. Thanks so much.
It's good to be back and good to be here.
Great. So I guess, yeah, on Dogs Who Sail, within the group, this is always, people are always asking this question about, their puppies and seasickness. And I know myself, one of our Cocker Spaniels, Mel, she suffered, well, not a lot. So we took her in the car once. This was one of the very first times we took her in the car, and it was a windy road and she threw up. And then it never happened again. And then we took her on the boat, and it was the first day that it was really lumpy and unstable. And again, she threw up and it never happened again. So, I was interested to see, it happened once and then that was it. So if you could shed some light on this today for us, that'd be really good.
Yeah, that's really common what you said, where some dogs will have it and then seemingly not have it anymore. We don't know the exact cause, but it appears to have something to do. And the most common signal between your eyes and your body, where your eyes kind of don't see the movement, but your body feels the movement, and then it kind of confuses your brain until eventually you feel nauseous and dizzy and not quite right. But what's really common in animals, especially dogs, is that it's a lot more common when they're younger, and it's quite common that they actually grow out of it once they're around 6 months or a year of age. And we think that might be because the inner ear is still developing and learning how to react to different situations.
Right.
But it also seems it's really common in dogs that anxiety and stress seems to play a really large role in getting motion sick. So sometimes when they become more accustomed to a situation, like going in the car, they're not so stressed about it, and then they don't get sick anymore. And the same goes on a boat. But it's quite interesting too. It's not just dogs that get seasick. A really wide variety of animals do, including birds and horses and cats. And there's even some studies that say that some fish can become disorientated from the movement, like being. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's so interesting, isn't it? And it's really funny what you say, because Mel was probably the most anxious out of the two dogs. So yeah, Maxie was more chilled, never got sick in the car or the boat, but Mel was, she was the anxious dog, and so that fits with my scenario. So I guess I could see straight away what the problem was, because she threw up everything and that she had. So I kind of figured that she had seasickness. But are there any other things that we can look out for? Because I've heard it's not necessarily vomiting that will indicate seasickness.
So yeah, like you said, vomiting is obviously the most obvious sign that they're starting to feel seasick or motion sick. But before that happens, there are some more subtle signs. So in dogs especially, a lot of dogs will start licking their lips or start getting a little bit of drool. when they're starting to feel nauseous, you'll see them kind of a lot.
Yeah.
And some dogs even do this kind of funny, it almost looks like a smile, where they pull their mouth back, and that's a sign they're about to vomit. So if you see those signs, you can at least prepare for the worst. They're starting to feel sick.
Yeah.
Some dogs, it'll be more anxiety based, where they actually start to cry a little bit, and they get up and they get down, and they get up and they get down. Or some will even get really sleepy, where they kind of look like they're dozing off, but it's because they feel quite nauseous. And then eventually the vomiting can start. And in some dogs, they can get diarrhea as well. So they're the most common symptoms we see with motion sickness.
Right. Okay. Is there anything that we can do to prevent them, getting seasick?
Yeah. So as I was saying, I guess with the anxiety related component, helping them become less and less nervous on the boat can play a really big role in them not getting seasick. So first, just letting them on the boat in a marina or in really calm waters, so they can just get accustomed to the boat and know what it feels like to be on a boat that's moving just a little bit. And then going for shorter day sails, so they can get a little more used to it. And then eventually going up to longer passages, so that it's a calm experience for them, can be really helpful. And also on that same vein, having stress reducing things like a bed that they have at home that they know comes on the boat, and they can go lay in that bed if they want to, or a little area that they can hide in, or toys or blankets that they're familiar with from being at home. And we also find in dogs, just like us, the fresh breeze can really help. So setting their bed up upstairs, up on deck for them, so they can get a bit of a breeze if they're starting to seem like they feel a little icky, can definitely help them. Another thing you can do too is withhold food. So obviously for liveaboards, this isn't always something that's going to be available to them, because they might be going for, passages for days and days. But especially if you're just day sailing and want to take your dog, withholding food for 6 to 12 hours in an adult dog is quite safe and can help prevent them getting seasick at times. So that's definitely an option. And then obviously we've got a lot of medications and things available to help either treat anxiety or the nausea associated with seasickness.
Yeah, right. So I guess that leads on to, should we be medicating our dogs for seasickness? And do you have any recommendations, what we can use or what not to use as well?
Yep. Definitely, like I was saying, teaching them to be calm is a really good first step, because especially obviously for a liveaboard, medicating them daily might not really work out very well for you either if you're on board for a long time. But like I said, a lot of dogs can get less and less seasick over time. So in the short term, definitely medication can help, and especially if it's like rough seas or if they're only going on the boat occasionally. Cerenia is a anti-vomiting medication available from a veterinary clinic, and they prescribe it based on the dose of the dog. But it's really good because it lasts for 24 hours. So especially for longer passages, say if you've got to go somewhere for 5 days or something, you can give one a day in the morning, and it's actually going to last, for that 24-hour period. And it's quite a safe medication. Dogs can also take Dramamine, just like people. Obviously the dose varies, so you've got to check with that. But it's quite safe, but they can get drowsy with it. Metoclopramide is also an option, which is an anti-nausea drug a lot of people take with seasickness as well. If it's anxiety related, sometimes the vets might prescribe something like Valium to help calm their nerves and keep them nice and calm before a trip. And especially in the lead up, stopping them getting really worked up before it happens can really help. How's that noise for you? It's not too bad?
No, the noise is fine. Can't even hear it.
Excellent. In terms of other remedies, acupuncture seemingly has been used in dogs successfully to help with seasickness. So that's an option if it's available in the area. And ginger also seems to help reduce symptoms, just like in people. But we don't really know exactly a dose range or how well that works in different dogs.
Can I just ask a question with the ginger? So how would we be feeding that to the dog?
So ginger capsules are the best option.
Okay, right.
In most of the studies, the amount you need to take to have an effect just isn't really grating ginger up in some ways just not going to cut it. So generally ginger capsules are your better option with that.
Right.
And then I thought I'd also mention, just from what I saw on the Facebook group, is rescue remedy can be used in animals, and they actually have rescue remedies for animals. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things we don't know exactly how well it works and why it works, but for some animals it really does seem to.
Yeah.
And CBD oil as well has been showing some recent studies that seem promising in both nausea-related problems and reducing anxiety problems.
Yeah.
However, it's really, really important to get pet-friendly or specific dog CBD oil, because animals are much more sensitive to THC. So anything that contains THC can have a really negative effect on dogs. Yeah. And they also have different cannabinoid receptors. And so using human CBD products don't always target the dogs as well, and vice versa. But definitely some studies have been quite promising. Yeah. And there's also a product called DAP, which is a dog pheromone spray, and that can help reduce anxiety as well. I think we talked a little bit about it last time we talked.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Things like that definitely can help. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And often people will mention essential oils, but I've read conflicting information, or perhaps some oils aren't necessarily good because there's such a concentrated dose of that essence. Mm-hmm. So do you know much about that?
Yeah, you've got to be quite careful with essential oils. Obviously, like birds, for example, you've got to be extremely careful with them, but for dogs, they are very sensitive because they've got such a strong sense of smell, one. So anything that we can smell, they can smell 100 times over. So for example, when we think lavender smells calming, that same drop of lavender on a dog's face might be just quite a lot for them to take in. Yeah. And essential oils like tea tree oil, for example, have been shown to have really bad neurological side effects in dogs. Some of them actually get very dizzy if you're burning anything with tea tree oil in the house and things like that. So it's definitely one of those things with essential oils, checking with a good naturopathic vet or doing some really good research first to make sure it's one that's safe, because there are a few that can be a little bit dangerous in dogs.
Yeah, great. So when should we be concerned that seasickness has kind of taken its toll on our dog? Like, I guess I'm looking for things like, do we look for signs of dehydration, or not knowing where they are? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so definitely, if the doggies have a once off or twice vomit on the boat, they're probably going to be okay. Especially if they can settle down afterwards and then have a little rest or something like that. It's not a huge concern. However, if they're not able to eat or drink, or if they just continually vomit, where sometimes once they start, then half an hour later they vomit again and then again and then again, and it gets more watery and bile, and that's getting more serious. Obviously, a really good first step is to have something like Cerenia on board, so that you could potentially, if that started happening, give them the tablet. And sometimes, obviously, just like for us, if you're already vomiting and you take the tablet, you might vomit it up, but generally they work pretty fast, those tablets, and so you might at least get a little bit absorbed. But I guess once they start getting dehydrated, like you said, that's one of the biggest concerns. Some ways to tell if your dog's dehydrated is if you touch their gums and they're very tacky and feel dry. That can be a sign that they're starting to get dehydrated. And another sign of dehydration is if you pinch their skin, especially like around the back of their neck, and it stays in a little tent instead of springing back down. That can also be a sign they're getting quite dehydrated. That's actually, I can't remember the exact percentage, but that's a pretty late stage sign. So that if they're at that point, they really need to go to the vet. Yeah. At that stage, if you're worried they're starting to get dehydrated, or they've not been able to eat or drink for 12 hours or something like this, or just keep vomiting repeatedly, the best thing you can do is either go and see a vet if they're really bad, or just get them off the boat so that they have time to recover. I guess if that's not an option, like I said, that's where having like a doggy medical kit that you've organised with your vet to have on board is a really good idea, especially for long passages, because then you can have those tablets ready if something's starting to go wrong like that, so that you can kind of at least keep them comfortable for however long it is needed to get them off the boat.
Yeah. Just recently with myself, I felt we went out into the ocean with some friends on their boat, and it was the worst day to go out. And it was the first time that I felt actually unwell myself, but I noticed when we came back in, as soon as I stepped onto land, I was okay. So yeah, I imagine it would be very similar for our dogs as well.
Yeah, definitely. And usually they recover quite quickly from it. Just like us, like you said, sometimes you feel a bit yuck for a little while afterwards, but once you're on dry land and you can sit and calm down, it's usually a lot better. Yeah.
So, I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, probably just like I said last episode, that putting yourself, last episode I was talking with you, is putting yourself in your doggy's paws, so to speak, in that, it's a really, any of us who've experienced seasickness know that you don't just get nauseous. It tends to give you a really bad feeling of kind of like almost like a foreboding feeling, where you feel like something really bad's about to happen. And as far as we can tell, dogs get really anxious with it as well. And so one of the problems with seasickness is if we force them to overcome it, if we keep exposing them to it, it can build their anxiety, which can actually make the sickness worse. And so taking it slow is a really good idea. And like I said, many dogs will overcome motion sickness, and especially as they get older, it's very, very common that they just grow out of it. But just like for some people, some dogs will just always get seasick on a boat, and there's just nothing you can do about it except either medicate them or just say this dog is a landlubber and we just aren't made for boating life. So it's just something to be aware of. If you feel like your doggy's getting seasick every time you're going out, it may be better to look at an alternative option where they stay home on sailing days or something like this.
No, that's such a great point, and I'm really pleased that you brought it up, because that's something that I'd like to talk about in a future episode, is the dog that isn't suited to sailing.
And it just does sometimes happen that for either like seasickness or anxiety, or even sometimes with certain health issues as they get older and things, they're just no longer made to live aboard, just like for people. So it's always good to kind of see it from their point of view a little bit.
Definitely. And I guess I'll point out to everybody here as well, Sheridan is a vet, but she's helping us out with some information to get us started with our knowledge, or build our knowledge. So it's important that you do speak with a vet. Is that right, Sheridan?
Definitely. Every dog is different, and so especially if your dog's already on medication, or they're particularly small or particularly big or anything like that, it's always a good idea before starting anything new to just give them, get a check over and have your vet make some recommendations specific for them as well.
Great. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for today. So once again, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I can pass them on to Sheridan. But thanks so much, Shedi. I really appreciate what you do for us, and just
thanks for having me.
It makes such a difference for
us
and our dogs. So thank you, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm always on the Facebook page, so I try to keep up with it a bit if anybody has any issues. So
great. And I'll pop Sheridan's details down below as well, because she does some really fantastic work. So you're in Mexico, did you say, at the moment?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We'll probably be here for the foreseeable future. So
so please check out the works that she does, because it's just amazing, and we need more human beings like her.
Thank you.
Thank you.